Hey, welcome to another episode of Legion Elite Motorsports. I'm your host, Isaiah, and today this is going to be a how-to modify your Magna intake. Magna goes from 88 to 91, and then there's a Generation 2 Magna intake from 92 to 94 or 5, somewhere around there. So let's dive in. This is the first gen, the one that we can use. All right, let's see. Okay, so we're gonna start here. Now, I've seen people modify these in many different ways. Here is the one that is already modified and been tested and been used for numerous years, actually. So, we're gonna go over what needs to happen in order to get it working perfectly like that one. So, of course, you could do these modifications any way you see fit, but we're gonna start from the intake side and work our way back. Okay, so first things first, first modification you have to do would be to this water jacket here. So this water jacket actually is smaller, like that one. That one's been modified. The reason you have to do that is because if you look at the shape of the port and you look at the head, which we have over here, the port will leak water through here and here because it's too big. So I've seen where people have gotten like a thin plate to mimic this to cover that. So it just has the holes on the plate, and then the plate fills up this channel with water like normal. So you can either weld it and get it resurfaced, or leave it like this and get a plate. Okay, that's the first part. Okay, so then after that, we're gonna look at the thermostat housing. So this intake manifold comes from a 1988 all the way to, I believe, 1991. And then in 1992, 3, and 4, it's a different version of this one. But the second version doesn't fit pretty much at all because of it interfering with the brake booster and stuff like that. So that one also needs to be highly modified, but not as much as this one. So first order of business, let's start from the front and then work our way back. So this comes from a Magna, and the Magna is 2.6 front wheel drive, fuel injected. As you can see, these are the original injectors that come with the Magna. So first order of business is thermostat housing. So this one, hold on, let me clear up that image for you guys. As soon as this thing will sit still. No, almost, there we go. All right, so this one is actually pretty much a tube, and then this flange just cut off and re-welded to that tube. So you have a multitude of different ways of doing that and, you know, succeeding. But besides that, as you can see, one of the important sensors are here for the coolant temperature sensor. So this can be moved and re-welded to this area, because this is another item that's not going to be needed. It goes all the way around to the back, to the thermostat housing, to this weird doohickey here at the bottom. So that is what's been done on this one. Okay, so that's another modification. Then there's actually another sensor on the bottom. Now you could use this sensor hole maybe for something else, or maybe even that, but the issue is that if you do, this gets in the way of the air conditioning. So, you know, if you're gonna keep air conditioning, you may not want to put anything on the bottom. So on mine, it is blocked off. Okay, so that's the first thing that you want to do. So next, in the order of the lineup, is the fuel rail. Now, the fuel rail can work, but definitely needs to be modified. So if you look here, you have the housing here. Now, if you look over here, if you have that housing here, it could get in the way of your throttle body, that being this guy. And you don't want that issue. You want to make sure that your throttle body area is completely clear. And speaking of throttle body, it's actually better if you put the throttle body on this side as opposed to this side, because on this side, there's a whole bunch of wires there, and you don't want it to grab or get caught up or hung up on anything. But again, you can flip this either way you want, and as long as you have this here welded rod to give the throttle cable a place to rest, you're pretty much good to go. But pertaining to the fuel rail, this piece needs to be removed. So that's easy enough to do on your own. So basically, once this is removed, take the legs off, and then you can actually cut this off and weld it. Or you can just have the, like, I guess you can kind of tap it, or, you know, sky's the limit really when it pertains to this piece. Some people block it off and go from the back end, which would probably be a better idea, but this back end is a little too long, so it has to be brought back a little bit so you can have room for the angle to come out, which mine would come out down, like at this angle, to make sure that it clears throttle cable and all that other good stuff. So that's that end. And now let's step over to here. Now, as you can see, this is the back of the manifold. If the engine is facing forward, it would be like this, right? But if it's facing frontwards, the throttle body would be over here. And that's what you're seeing here. So, with that being said, you have to cut this area off, get your flange, get your throttle body. We use Mustang TPSs because they're 3-wire and they're super simple, super cheap, and they function. You get a good clean TPS signal and it works. So the size of this throttle body, I believe, is 70 millimeter, but I would highly suggest or prefer to go 70 or 75 or whatever, and then you can kind of take it from there, especially with the hole being that diameter. So you have your welding work cut out for you here. And then moving along, vacuum ports, very important. I've seen them on the back side, I've seen them on the front side, I've seen them on the bottom right under here. Whichever you prefer, it's more of a preference. This doesn't get in the way of anything. I've seen people weld a vacuum block to one side just to, have a lot of options when it comes to vacuum. But these 3 ports are good enough for me. I don't need anything additional, so I usually end up capping one of these off. But this one works good for the PCV valve, which goes to the valve cover. That'd be this guy. And the rest of them control your accessories and whatever else you want to put vacuum to, whether it be your distributor or anything like that. So, moving on. The throttle body here, the old one, has to be cut off. This one has a nice little cap that was welded on there, so that's pretty handy. If I was able to find that again, I'd definitely do it again. Very clean look in general. So, moving around to the back. So, in this area specifically, which is very important because this is the water we previously talked about, and you see here it's been modified completely. So, this you don't have to do right here. You could move it somewhere else, but this is probably ideal because most of the water housing has been moved, and the vacuum for the brake booster has been put here, which I would highly recommend probably putting it here or something like that. And then if you look here, all of this stuff you have to cut off, that's a lot of work. So there's a vacuum port there for the brake booster that you can clearly use. You know, only thing you have to make sure is that it has the factory one-way valve that's on the firewall. So as long as you have that, you'll be good to go, and you won't blow up your diaphragm with positive boost. So that's, you know, that. And then last but not least, all of this stuff having to be removed under this weld is the rest of the plenum in the water housing. So the water housing pretty much is engulfed on cylinder number 4. So inside here, you'll probably see the rest of it. And that's what's happened here. So they shaved all of this off smooth. So now you can see where everything's supposed to be. And, you know, this piece can be moved so you don't have to modify your fuel rail to accommodate this wonky thing sitting there. But anyway, so that is everything you need to modify when it pertains to your Magna intake. So what I want to do is take this time to look at the manifolds. All right, so this is unmodified. Alrighty. Same. Ooh, and before I forget, you might want to fix your EGR port, because these heads do have EGR. New or not, doesn't matter, still has EGR. So that's one long drill hole all the way through the head. Nice weak point. But yeah, it has a plate here that houses the EGR flow. So you can come in here and you can service, but you can see it flows through the bottom. Okay, so if anything, you definitely want to plug these up so it doesn't serve it to your engine, and it does it through here. And this is the completely modified one. Still working on the fuel rail for the community, coming soon. But yeah. So I need to do some repaint work. This thing's been sitting in a machine shop for a couple of months, so it got pretty wiped up. But yep, that is pretty much about it. Now again, just like I said, you can modify these things any way you see fit. Any of the issues I named here that has to be addressed, you can address it in your own special way. But as long as you address it and, you know, get your car on the road, multi-port. All right. And with that being said, we're going to call it an episode there. If you found this video helpful, definitely give it a thumbs up. If this is the type of content you like to watch, definitely consider subscribing. hitting that bell icon for updated notifications, and I will see you next time. And remember, knowledge is power. See you next time.